Hello, this is Annie with Seed System Solution, and in today's video I'm going to show you a few options that you have within the hamburger menu on the customer detail page that allows you to do things like apply all your returns out, unapply all of your payments, create a balance forward memo to move balances from one year to the next, as well as just highlight this print all invoices button. So from your customer detail page, you can find all of these buttons. When we navigate to the Invoice and Pay tab, we can toggle our year to see our balances amongst our different years. You can also use a report such as your Accounts Receivable Aging report that would allow you to filter based on a specific year and to view your customer balances for that year or specific types of transactions. You could also use just the regular accounts receivable report or the open accounts receivable report. And all of those reports can be found by going to Menu, Reports, Customer and Receivables, and then you have options such as that accounts receivable aging, accounts receivable, just the summary versions, or your open accounts receivable. When we are back on that customer page, we can toggle to the year. I do also want to make note here, if you are navigating to the customer page by clicking on the customer name, but you are noticing that things seem to be processing really slow, we do recommend either printing or exporting this report and then just navigating to your customer detail through your customer list versus having your accounts receivable report open in the background. There are a lot of calculations that happen on this report, and so having it open in the background can affect your speed and performance. As well as after you create these memos or transactions, it can adjust your totals on this report because it does reset some global payment application dates, and in which case your balance dues may no longer be correct unless you refilter your report. So we typically recommend, again, printing or exporting your accounts receivable report and then just navigating to your customer through your customer detail or customer find. So once we've navigated on our customer detail to our Invoice and Pay tab, we can see that we have a return open here. Now, the button I'm about to reference can only be used if you do not have payments applied. And so we're going to open our hamburger menu. We're going to select Apply All Returns. And what this process is going to go do is within the year that we're in, it's going to apply our return transactions back against any invoices that made up that return line. So back against those initial invoices. And the reason it can only be used if no payments or returns have been applied is because if a payment was applied against an invoice and then you apply the return back against the initial invoice, it is going to make that invoice have an overpayment, in which case you would need to then open your return application and unapply or adjust the amount applied return manually. So you can then make any adjustments or unapply any pieces of those applications manually from your apply payment. The next button that you might want to use then is our Unapply All Payments. This can be used when you have applications that have been applied out and you want to start fresh. So you want to reset all of these balances. The only thing that this will not unapply is a check. So if you've written a check back against a payment or an open credit, if you use your Unapply All Payments button, it is going to leave that application open. So when you select this, it's going to just give you a notice that you're unapplying all credits, cannot be undone. And depending on how many transactions or how many payments and credits that you have applied out may depend on how long this process does take. So it can be almost instant or it can take a few minutes depending on the size of the account. So when you press yes, it is going to go through then. On this particular account, I only have one return applied, but if there was a credit memo or any payments, they would all reset back to 0. And so now we can see back on that return, we have our full balance here. And our final button in our hamburger menu that regards payment applications is going to be our Create Balance Forward memos. The process of this is used to move your either a credit balance or a debit balance from one particular year into the next growing season. Depending on your business transactions, this may or may not be something that you want to do. Benefits would be having the new open balance be in your new year. And so if you wanted to limit your AR reports based on year, you can do so. One limitation might be if you run finance charges against open invoices, you might want to leave those accounts on their original due date so that way you don't affect any finance charges that would be calculated later on. You can calculate finance charges on debit memos. You would just need to make sure your date corresponds to the dates that you have that you want to calculate those finance charges as of. So to create this, we're going to first toggle or make sure we're in the year that we want to have our balances transfer forward from, in which case ours is 2025 right now. And then we're going to choose Create Balance Forward Memos, or it might just say Transfer Balance or Move Balance. It's going to be something along that terminology or lines. And this next process after we click the button might be slightly variable depending on what version of Seed System Solution you're on. But what you're seeing today is the latest version that we have. So from here, we're going to select what date to transfer our balances as of. So any credit memos or debit memos are going to be based on the date that we select here. We can adjust later on if necessary. Next, you're going to see an option for either to confirm a product ID number or to confirm a chart of accounts number. Depending on the settings, might depend on what options that you see here. If you wish to adjust or change the product ID number that is currently set up in settings, you can type in the new product ID number or new chart of account number in the data box here and press OK. If you hit cancel, you will cancel out of this process right now. And if you hit OK with entering nothing in the box, it is going to keep the current chart of accounts or product ID number. When you run that process, then it's going to go through and create your credit or debit memos within your transaction year. So in our case here, we had an open debit. So it created a credit memo and applied that credit memo against our open invoices. If you had an open credit, it would create a debit memo and apply that debit memo against any open credits within that year. We do recommend you had balanced your account first before running this process. So if you have any open payments or open returns or open credit memos, you apply that against any of your open debits prior to running this transaction. However, if you don't, it will create both credit memos and debit memos in the year to close those out. So again, we recommend settling the account before running this process. If we toggle over to the following year, so in our case, we're going to move to 2026, we can see on that same day, we now have a debit memo for our debit balance carried forward from our previous year. And that is the process of carrying those credit balances forward. If we had the credit in the last year, we would see a credit memo in this year. The last button in our customer hamburger menu that I was going to highlight is just our Print All Invoices button. This button can be used, just as it says, within the year that you're toggled to. You can select that and it will run through a loop process to print all of your invoices that that customer has in that particular year. So if you wanted to send those all at once to a customer. If you have any further questions about Seed System Solution, you can reference our other training videos that are found on our website. You can email us at grow@seedsystem.co, or register for one of our free monthly seat system support Zoom meetings.